All right, welcome. This is the Genesee County Compassion Club show. Thanks for joining me today. Here, coming to you live from FlintTalkRadio.com. Glad to be here in the studios. John, thanks for being here with me, making it happen. Just want to let you guys know what's going on down at the Genesee County Compassion Club, and also give you updates on the medical marijuana news here in Michigan. I've got a few things going on down at the club I definitely want to let you know about. I know last week we had our chili cook-off, which was awesome, and then also I know we had our Halloween festivities, and I'm pretty sure that went well too. Coming up here in the month of November, I know we've got our soup kitchen coming up here, and that's going to be the third Saturday in November. Second, I'll get you a date on that. So if you want to sign up for that, you can do so down at the club. That's going to be Saturday the 23rd. So if you could help out at the soup kitchen, we definitely appreciate it. Other than that, I know we've got our Thanksgiving coming up this month. Everybody's looking forward to Turkey Day. It's always fun. And I'm sure we'll be having lots of other cool things down at the club. Put this poll here. And a lot of stuff going on in medical marijuana. If you've been listening to the news, you keep up on all the stories. We had 3 different proposals happen yesterday in the state of Michigan for medical marijuana. Actually, I take that back. It was not for medical marijuana. It was for recreational marijuana. 3 different cities in the state of Michigan yesterday passed ballot initiatives, including Lansing, Ferndale, and also Jackson. 3 different cities passed different forms of decriminalization for marijuana. It's all for small personal use. Again, this is for recreational use, as you may call it. It doesn't change anything as far as state law or federal law. It's still illegal under both of those laws. But these are definitely momentum moving forward to legalization, some would say. And it's kind of interesting. These bills all passed with overwhelming support, overwhelming majorities. And each of them had their own little twist. Lansing's, Jackson's, and Ferndale all had their own language. And overwhelmingly, the majority voters down there approved these. And so we'll see these be implemented soon. I saw a couple comments here from other lawmakers in the state, such as like our Attorney General. So basically, this really doesn't matter. He's going to go on arresting people as if the bill doesn't exist. So, I mean, you can take it for what it's worth. I think it's kind of interesting that these, now we've got, I think, 11 or 14 cities in the state now that have passed similar ordinances. So it's becoming quite common across Michigan where they have some type of decriminalization for small amounts of marijuana for adults. And most of these are for people 21 and older. And it's either some type of lesser penalty and crime than what was previously associated with possession of marijuana, and sometimes it's just legalization for adults. But it's very interesting. I think the main thing is it's allowing law enforcement to focus on what's important, which is obviously not worrying about people just utilizing cannabis for personal uses in small amounts. It's not licensing them to grow or sell or anything like that. And in most cases, these are for amounts of an ounce or less. So we're dealing with small amounts here and for adult use purposes. You hear that, John?
Yeah, what is that?
I got water in my headphones.
You got, what is it?
It sounds like water dripping in my headphones.
Wow. It's weird. Yeah, I heard something briefly, but
It stopped as soon as you moved. You drinking coffee in there?
no. I didn't hear that. That's weird. I did hear some tunk, 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 tunk like that
Yeah.
real quick. Yeah. That's why I looked up real quick. I was looking at my phone and somebody texted me.
All right. Well, back on track here. So basically this is kind of symbolic in a way. It definitely is a move forward for marijuana reform, policy reform here. I think we need to have more reform when it comes to dealing with drugs in the way that we currently deal with it as a criminal issue, and it really should be somewhat more of a social issue, a health-related issue where people can get treatment and not incarceration. I mean, we still have problems with jails being overcrowded and so forth, and we need to be able to put real criminals away, allow law enforcement the time and the resources to be able to do that. And if they're not tied up with dealing with small, simple possession charges like these here are eliminating, it gives them the ability to get back to doing what's important. So I think all in all, these are good things. Again, this doesn't really affect state law, it doesn't affect federal law, it has no bearing on our current medical marijuana law in Michigan, but it does make a difference for law enforcement in these communities to allow them to focus on more important issues. So that's overall, I think, a pretty good thing. Also, yesterday in the State House, we had Senate Bill 660. This is being kind of referred to as the Prairie Plant Systems Bill. This was in front of the Judiciary Committee yesterday, and it is to my knowledge that they did pass through the Judiciary Committee. This is a bill that would run parallel alongside our current medical marijuana law. It would allow pharmacies to dispense medication. It would allow for, or actually would classify a new class of marijuana as pharmaceutical marijuana that would be produced by licensed facilities licensed by the state. And of course, these facilities so far seem to be ones that are licensed by Prairie Plant Systems. This is a bill that's being pushed by that particular corporation, and this, of course, is the corporation that runs the Health Canada program, which provides all of the medical marijuana to patients in Canada. So they were allowed to push this bill through. It was kind of I forget what it was, quick paced or fast tracked, if you will, through the Senate. This bill was just introduced or reintroduced here this last month, and then it's already in front of the Judiciary Committee as of yesterday. So definitely being moved through very quickly. It still needs to have, the understanding is that it's contingent on the federal drug policies or federal drug rescheduling of marijuana, which is not really in any time going to happen soon. But, it is kind of lining things up. I guess I have certain reservations about it in the case of maybe it doesn't have to have federal rescheduling. That's the word right now, but I don't necessarily believe that. We have other states right now that are allowing medical marijuana, and they are state-run facilities that have their own regulations. So it seems to me that the state could still put this through if they really wanted to. It's got some big pushers behind it in the Senate, obviously, with it already being put through. It could be heard by the whole Senate by as early as next week. So they're really pushing this through very quickly. It basically carves out a whole new section for these facilities to be able to produce as much marijuana as they deem necessary, and then beyond that allows it to be sold through pharmaceutical stores such as like CVS or Rite Aid.
Does that sound back again?
Yeah, it is. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Yeah, hold on. Let's look around here.
Well, let's see. It just went away again now.
Okay.
Having some sound technicalities here. So very interesting how quickly this is getting put through. It's almost a little bit discouraging seeing how as much input as the people that are already in medical marijuana have already given has had very little impact on what the Senate or the House will be doing at the state level. But some guys come in with money, such as like Prairie Plant Systems, and all of a sudden, boom, this stuff starts getting fast-paced, put through, and I don't know, kind of mixed feelings on this bill here. I guess we'll have to see. Another part of the bill is that it also eliminates the synthetic bill that was passed here this last year and makes synthetic forms of cannabis legal again if it's put through the pharmaceutical process. So kind of interesting there. Previously, they outlawed that. You remember the K2 spice being outlawed? You got water in your ear?
Yeah, I felt like it for a minute. Now it's in my head. I mean, the water dripping. So.
If you hear water dripping on the sound, that's what we're talking about. All right, but the K2 spice last year was, passed through legislation in the House and the Senate, basically making this synthetic form, synthetic drug illegal, and now they're backtracking on this language to allow an exception for synthetic forms of cannabis to be produced, as long as they're produced by this supposedly pharmaceutical company. The interesting thing is here it's they're calling it a pharmaceutical-based cannabis, but the Prairie Plant Systems does not produce pharmaceuticals. They produce agricultural products.
So this sounds, from what I'm understanding of it, this is actually a very serious threat to the system as the way things are run now.
Well, it could very well be a threat to the current system. They're saying right now that the current law would not be retracted. Patients would still be able to produce their own. Caregivers would still be allowed to produce for patients. But I think that this could be sort of the wolf in sheep's clothing, if you will. Obviously in Canada that's the way it used to be, and now just recently they passed a bill where only companies like this would be allowed to produce cannabis and patients would not be able to produce their own.
Well, see, they got enough money to buy the congressmen and senators. That's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for everything to work out so they can get enough money coming in so they can purchase the votes to make sure they're the only supplier.
It does seem that way, John, without trying to put words in their mouths or anything. I mean, how quickly this bill was put through. This is the second or third time this bill has been brought up. And, of all the other issues that our state and Senate has to deal with, this was brought right to the forefront in the Judiciary Committee there. And, it may even be heard by the full Senate as early as next week. So,
well, it sounds like basically they're just biding their time so they could get this through. They're not going to change the current system. Then when they get enough money coming in, they can purchase outright the congressmen, senators, whatever they need, the representatives, to get this pushed through on their end. And so, let's face it, they'll be guaranteed a bigger paycheck each. That's that double dipping crap is what I think. That annoys me all to hell.
I think it very well could be, like I said, a black flag here for the current program. I think it's something that patients and caregivers have to pay attention to, and I think that's something that we need to be putting input in at the state level. So I definitely encourage you out there listening to call your state senator, state representative, and voice your opinions on this type of legislation. Obviously, there's pros and cons to it. You can extrapolate your own. I mean, I think that patients, having choices is a good thing. However, I've seen results from prairie plant systems and their production. It's lower than what is currently available to most patients as far as potency, as far as availability in different forms. I don't think it's going to provide any further safety to the program. It doesn't seem to have any benefits other than maybe people could go to the pharmacy and get theirs. However, there is a clause in the bill that if you want to take part in this program, you have to relinquish your current patient or caregiver card. So it's either one or the other.
Seems like it's an effort to create a monopoly, essentially.
It does seem that way, and I think that eventually that's the way that it would be going. They're currently saying no, 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 but of course we've seen things change before, and I think that we need to be aware of this. And if you can imagine, patients right now have quite a wide variety of selection in the current system, and if they were to go to this type of a system, they might only have 2 or 3 different choices available to them. So I think this is something here that we need to pay attention to very carefully. All right, there's a couple other things I want to discuss today, and I know that you guys probably heard about Colorado. They passed their tax on the legal cannabis. It's up to 25% in total. There's a 15% excise tax that they passed on cannabis, and then another 10% sales tax on top of the state sales tax. So the bill passed with a pretty strong majority out there in Colorado, so it seems like people in Colorado have no problem with their cannabis as long as they can get their tax money from it, and it looks like they will be getting that. So another 25% on top of that product. That's quite a bit more than what we've seen on other products, like alcohol in the state. This tax much lower tax bracket.
Well, just wait till a monopoly get control of it. Then they'll lobby to get lower taxes on it, so they won't have to pay it.
Maybe so. Currently, right now, I mean, that's 25% is what they're going to be paying. So we'll see. A couple other things. There was Portland, Maine. They legalized possession of up to 2.5 ounces of marijuana for adults 21 and up. This is just in the city of Portland. Basically, it just eliminates some of the fines that for people that were caught with 2.5 ounces or less. It's the first city out on the East Coast to have a legalization type of measure pass in one of their cities. Kind of interesting there as well. So, but that's about it for what I have for you for news today. There's pretty interesting with having all three different cities in the state there passing their marijuana ballots with pretty strong majority. I think this is a growing trend. Like I said, this is now 14 different cities across Michigan that have different types of marijuana decrim or legalization measures that have been passed by their voters. And then on top of that, of course, you have the Michigan Medical Marijuana Program, which now has, I think, over 150,000 people, according to the state, registered in the program.
See, I see this as encouraging. I think this is even though the federal policy hasn't changed or doesn't look like, I don't think it's going to anytime soon, I think it will have to. It keeps on with momentum like this. I think it will have to change. I really do.
I think so. I mean, it definitely is. It seems to be definitely a growing momentum, not just here in Michigan, but across the country. We're not seeing too many of these medical marijuana or marijuana ballots be voted down. So there's constantly polls coming out that the sentiment across the country is growing that this is not something that should be illegal any longer. I think one of the important things is that for states where they don't have even medicinal access, is that those states hopefully will come around and start to make that available to their constituents. You know, we've seen that cannabis has an amazing value to it for medicinal purposes, and especially for people that are with these dire medicinal needs. If they could get access to that, at least as a medicinal form, I think that's the most important thing at this point. And then from there, you know, going on to having the legalization, stop incarcerating people. We have, you know, like I said before, we have lots of problems with overcrowding in prison and so forth. You know, and now we'll have a model in the nation, Colorado, to look at and to see, okay, well, here, is this really impacting? How is it impacting things? Are we having a savings as far as when it comes to law enforcement, not having to worry about these petty crimes? Are we increasing our revenue as a state in Colorado, you know, for the tax purposes? Are they able to, you know, this tax that they passed here, it is specifically geared towards improving schools and going towards some other specific measures in the state. So we'll have a way to look at that and see, okay, you know, is this really having a positive effect? Are the people that have been pushing for legalization, are they correct? Or is it more like the other type of proponents that are saying, well, no, this is not going to save money, it's going to cost money because of the health concerns. You know, and I think it's going to go the other way. I think that the state's going to be able to make money on this. I think that law enforcement will be able to save money on it, and all in all, it will be a revenue producer for the state. But now we've got a model, actually a real model to look at, and you know, we can stop speculating and actually have some real proof. So I think that's a good thing. But I certainly agree with you, John. I think that the sentiment across the country is growing, and this is something that isn't slowing down.
It's like, I mean, I think that the federal government's going to eventually have to start changing, or otherwise, I think we tolerate them being out of step with us too much in our lives. I don't know why. I'm amazed at the fact we haven't thrown more people out for not doing our state reps here, our state, you know, the representatives here. I mean, like Kildee, Reagan, you know, none of these guys ever did anything that the bulk of us wanted to do, and yet they kept their damn job. Well, I don't know why they keep it, because he shook their hand outside of a plant or something like that. That made him a buddy for life. I mean, that's insane. You know, if they're not doing the job, fire their asses. You know, but
well, and as long as you know, people continue to keep voting these folks in, then that's the results you're going to have. You know, if we don't hold their politicians accountable, well, then you're not going to get people that listen to you. Speaking of that, we did talk about our 3 different representatives here in Genesee County that were up for election here, filling out the 49th district for State House Representative. State House Representative. And it looks like Phil Phelps, Democratic candidate, took that election there, 62% majority. So congratulations to Mr. Phelps, and we hope you represent us well. Hopefully you'll be one of those people that do actually listen to us and take into account the constituents' concerns. We can only hope.
God, actually have a person, a congressman or senator, or representative of some sort, actually listens to what the public wants. I mean, can we actually have that?
I don't know.
I don't know. It seems like they've always voted for their interest and for their own way of thinking, and ignoring the rest of us. I mean, I think we'd dive shock if somebody actually did what we told them to do.
I think that it seems like a lot of the people that are currently like the newbies that get into it, first term representatives and senators, they seem to be a lot more in tune with their constituents and wanting to listen, you know, having that sort of faith in the government. And it seems like the people that have been there for a long time, you know, maybe they're kind of lifelong politicians, if you will, they seem to get more and more jaded and stop listening and just kind of go with their own agenda.
Because
it may not be always the case, but it definitely seems to be the way.
Dale Kildee, I mean, he was out of the area for 30-some years. I mean, he came back sporadically and stuff, and he lived in the D.C. area. I mean,
sure.
You know, I mean, so how would he know what was going on here? Oh, he had feelers out. You know, they should be required to be here in their districts more often.
I think that we should have more term limits, quite frankly. I'm not a big fan of lifelong politicians. I think that kind of does sort of breed that jaded activity of not really listening to your constituents, starting to play more of that special interest type of tune, and to reassure that you're going to get your next position or reelected. And I'd rather have people just be more in tune with making a difference, making a positive impact in their community, and really trying to find out what their people are wanting rather than what the next special interest or lobbyist is trying to push in front of them. All right, one more thing I want to share with you. I think we might have mentioned this last week, but just to be sure, there was the case of the baby Bree. This was a child that was taken by CPS here in Michigan from their parents. This Steve Green was a medical marijuana, or is a medical marijuana patient, along with his wife, who's a caregiver. And last week, the child was returned back to the parents by the Michigan courts. And I believe the only type of requirement that they placed on the parents is that they had to complete some type of drug counseling class or parenting class. But at any rate, it's nice to see that the courts were willing to stand up and put the child back in the home where it belongs.
Gene, are we going to see that for everybody who uses Vicodins and Oxycontin? Are we going to use that done for everybody who uses those kind of drugs?
You know, you bring up a good point, John. I mean, these people have a medicinal purpose for this. Their doctors obviously gave them permission to use it. Mr. Green has, I believe he has multiple sclerosis, so it's not like it's a pretty serious condition he's been using the medical marijuana for. And it's sad to see them be put in such type of a persecution and having marijuana be held out as some type of separate drug versus, like you said, oxycodone or some other type of pharmaceutical, where that would have never been the case. You know, if they had gone into CPS, had gone into a home, they probably would have, first place, never gone to the home if somebody had called and said, hey, these parents are using XYZ pharmaceutical. You know, why would CPS would have no reason to go to that home to see them, to check on the child's well-being? That wouldn't bring up anything into question.
Well, what's going to happen? I mean, down there, keep this line of logic going for these politicians. If they may have some familiarity with some type of surgical procedure that you're scheduled for, not with Obamacare, this is a possible reality. They're going to try to prevent you from getting that because they don't agree with that approach. They think that you should use the other approach, although the other doctors said this is a possibility. They don't have no right intruding on medical treatment of people. That's it, flat out. The government doesn't have, in my opinion, they have no right to interfere. If that's their course of treatment, they should be left to that and their physicians, not to a bunch of bureaucrats who don't even know what the difference between an aspirin and a Tylenol is.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, John. It seems like to me that CPS has their right to do their job, but at the point when they found out that these people are legal, registered patients or caregivers, whichever it is, then it should stop. I mean, they're following the law of the parents. They went through the process. They have a legitimate reason for doing what they do. It's all been legitimized by the state. And so why would there be a call or a reason for CPS to go to that next step? We got to call, we got to investigate. Well, as soon as you find out that they're card holders, it seems like the investigation should stop. But it didn't. And it went so far as to actually them proceeding, pulling the child out of the home. I do believe that the baby was taken out of the home for over 6 weeks. And so it's pretty serious. Have a young child like that taken away from the parents. Definitely traumatic for both the child and for the parents themselves. This is an infant that definitely is going to require a lot of care. And, I think that we do need to have some more prevention as far as government intervention goes. And, especially when people are following the law and doing the right thing. So I'm glad to see that the courts were at least able to step up here, do the right thing, give the child back. I think it's a little bit ridiculous that the parents were forced to go through some type of a counseling class. Again, why? If the child's able to go back, why should they have to complete a counseling class? I don't understand that.
It's because see, it's like they're politicizing every aspect of our very existence. What happens if you want to serve your kid oatmeal with cinnamon? Oh, we don't like that, so we're going to pull your kid from your house because until you get anti-cinnamon training. I mean, it's just insane. It can go that far.
Well, yeah, or maybe they give them honey or something like that.
Didn't we get along fine with all of these bastards running our lives? I think we did far better. More innovations are done. This country is moving forward. Now I got to ask some suited bureaucrat if I could take a dump, and when how much can I do of it, or did I have to hold some back? This is getting insane. This is getting insane. It really
does seem
is
insane. And again, I think that maybe if these people weren't card holders, I could understand. Now they've got an illegal drug in the home. They've got no reason for for using it, whatever. But they weren't. These people were registered patients. Mr. Green had a very legitimate reason for using the medication. And again, so you give the children back, but now they got to go complete a class. That doesn't make sense either.
It's like no. See, they don't have a problem with the drug about marijuana these people have a problem with them using that as a form of medical treatment. And so basically, since they're not doctors, I don't really think their opinion matters. They're a damn bunch of suit-wearing lawyers, probably. You know, I mean, is a lawyer omniscient now? I mean, just because you go to law school, you're omniscient?
And it does make it scary. You have a doctor that's stepping up and giving a recommendation here to a patient, and then CPS turns around and says, well, now you're not fit to be a parent. That's a pretty serious issue there. And where do we get to draw the line here in America where we're supposedly free? It definitely makes it scary for parents out there that are patients or caregivers and feeling like, hey, their children are in jeopardy or something. And I think that obviously if you have medication in the home, you have to be careful with that around your children, no matter what kind of medication it is, and making sure that they don't have access to it. That's priority number one is your children. But, when you've done the things the right way and then all of a sudden CPS steps in or some other type of government official steps in and decides on opinion that, no, you're not, it definitely makes it scary here in the land of the free. What are people supposed to do?
See, I'm puzzled by why anybody thinks we're the land of the free. We allowed our government to take away booze back in the 20s, for 12, 13 years. We allowed them to take our gold, which is our wealth. And we said nothing. Yeah, we pride ourselves. I like that what a comedian says. If you were born free, you had half your cheat out half of the shit, and you used to go around waving a flag about it. I mean, it's insane to think even consider ourselves the land of the free.
I think that's what we're told, so a lot of people go along with it, and I think if we were the land of the free, like you're talking about, John, there'd be a lot of different changes, but
it'd be better. It would be a lot better because let's face it, suit-wearing bureaucrats, they're wearing a tie. I think it impedes the process of getting blood to your brain, and they get a skewed view of the world from wearing a tie.
The tie's doing it. It's all the tie's fault.
So if they wear that tie all the time, that's what's happening.
If they had a clip on, the world would be a lot safer.
Right, the world would be a lot safer. They'd be a lot more casual people. Kick them in the head occasionally to get the blood stirred up. I'm sick of these politicians because they're going to always be looking over that family's shoulder. To CPS, it's always be looking.
Probably
over that
right,
shoulder.
and I guess. When it comes to politicians, I think one of the big things that's frustrating is the fact that we have a full-time legislature. I don't see any reason why in this advanced society that we now live in, where we need to have lawmakers, 150 some odd of them here at the state level, plus another, handful of them up at the federal level, 24/7 making laws. How many more laws do we need to have made? And that to me just seems a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, has it created a perfect union by doing all this? No. It's basically create a headache, bureaucracy. Look at look how much money we spend on support of all this stuff. The courthouses and everything else.
Sure.
It's insane.
It is, and I think eventually it's going to come to a head where we're running out of money. If you look at the national debt, how it's just catapulted here in the last 10 years, let alone the last 50, it's astounding. So we're definitely not able to continue this path, but yet it seems like all we do is still head farther down it and continue to pass more laws and more regulations and raise more costs and so on and so forth. They're looking at all different types of new regulations constantly, and it's all in the name of bettering our society or providing more safety to its citizens, but yet really it's just the demise of our democracy, if you will. I think that we're just continuing down this road of debt, and it's eventually going to suck us in.
It's become a vacuum. The money's gone before we even get it from our paychecks. We can't protest it because we're always told, if we, you're made like, oh, you're a tea party or mock, you go to your tea bagging people and all this stuff. Think you're doing something disgusting. And do you ever think about it when they attack the tea party or other groups that are concerned about how money is being wasted? You're considered like you're an evil person because you're questioning how it's being spent. You're evil. Don't you trust these politicians? Well, no, I don't. Why not? Because they're the ones that seem to benefit from all these laws, regulations, and nonsense. But no, we can't say that because, well, he shook my hand one time. He's a nice guy. One day I went to see him. He was really polite. And I don't care. You got to look at the ultimate purpose of these people is to control your very existence.
I'm sure they are polite. They usually are, It doesn't mean they're a good person. I think there was that interesting thing there where they passed the government was reopened, right? And in that bill package there was a $3 billion additional bill or additional part of the bill added on for a pet project, to build a bridge or something.
Right.
And I think, like, well, what does that have to do with reopening the government and extending our budget? Apparently, it was needed to be done right then and there, so they just throw it on, and I think, like, that's $3 billion. Like, when did the word a billion just not become a shocker anymore?
Trillion, maybe bulk it, a trillion, but not a billion. I mean,
well, that's just it. I mean, back in the 80s and growing up, I mean, a million was a lot. You know what I mean? And so now somehow a million's not a lot anymore, and so we use the words billion. I mean, do you realize how much a billion is? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well, no, another thing is you worked for own banks for a while. In your first life, I guess. I'll bring that up, but but it's like what would happen if we? We could actually have fiat money. It'd work if we didn't have the Federal Reserve. We're paying a group of individuals interest on the money we're borrowing as a nation to these people who are just a bunch of individuals. They're not part. If we just printed our own money, the Congress, okayed to printing of money, and then it was circulated and destroyed or whatever it was at the end of its cycle, we can maintain this. But having a bunch of people benefiting and sucking off the interest, these handful of individuals called the Federal Reserve System, that's where the problem is coming about.
Well, I agree, but I mean, at the same time, you've got them passing federal spend out, if you will, I like to call it, faster than you can blink.
Right.
And so the only way to support that is by printing out money. I mean, it's just the bottom line. Where are they going to pay these bills otherwise? They just keep printing it. And eventually it's going to come back in the form of hyperinflation. There's just no two ways about it.
U.S. currency, you come into a toilet paper dispensary near you. I mean, that's pretty much what's going to lead it up to, bring it up to.
At some point, yes, I think so. I mean, I was surprised that our credit rating was not downgraded after the recent debt debacle. We'll have to see what happens here in January or February. And I'm still baffled by the budget increase that they did do. I mean, it's a tentative date in the future. They don't have a specific date set as to when the next budget increase has to be done by, and they didn't give a specific budget increase spending limit. They just said, well, we're just going to increase it. And I mean, how do you set a budget by just not setting a budget?
It's okay. I'm going to do that with my
So is it indefinite right now? We've got like a 5-6 month spending spree available?
There's January, December or January, I think. Yeah, January it's coming up. So, that's where they're supposed to readdress this issue. In other words, they will kick it down the road again, just like a bad can. I mean, they'll just kick it down the road again.
Well, and it seems to be all we ever do is if we keep increasing our national deficit or our national debt limit, then we're really just kicking the problem down the road because we're just increasing our debt load. And we're not dealing with the fact that, we have less money coming in than what's going out. And you can only do that for so long. I mean, everybody with a household understands this. Everybody with a wallet or a purse gets this concept, but yet our federal government seems to live in this fairyland where, no, that doesn't matter. We can just go ahead and keep increasing our debt limit because everybody believes in the good faith of the American nation that we're always going to be prosperous and continue to grow. And if you look at our country in the last 20 years, our country has not grown. The manufacturing, the shipping, the import or the exports, everything's going down, and yet we continue to spend more. And I think that, and now we're spending more faster. If you look at the last 4 years. And, a lot of people will blame that on the current president, but the outgoing president of the last different, party, he spent $600 trillion on his way out. So, I mean, you can blame it on whoever you want, but it's not a party that's doing it. It's the whole that's making this happen, and it just continues to occur.
What do you want to argue over as a priorities, though? Where you should be spending your money, the Democrats and Republicans. And in some ways, it can be, I guess I could agree on the left. I think that I'd rather see the money going towards domestic problems and situations and people than going to fight wars that are very unpopular and almost never going to end. I don't see them ending. And then I don't think that we have 168 nations in the world. We got a military presence the United States does, and 138 of them.
I think that you have to.
Sustained.
To me, it's pretty clear. You've got the corporate America pushes into the politicians to get them to pass laws, to get them to move things, to get them to do things politically, and part of that is the global expansion that they're doing and will continue to do. And if you have a company like Verizon or something like that that's providing telecommunications they can pass a bill or try to influence a certain way. Well, now it is in their favor for us to go in and maneuver into a different country, because as soon as it's stabilized, well then boom, guess what the first thing to move in there is? Well, that telecommunications company. So
and they always try to fault capitalism. Capitalism by itself, this is a hybrid. This is corporatism, and it's the only way. It's basically like mercantilism. It was in the the 17th, 18th century. It's government creating monopolies with a handful of people who have an interest in doing that.
Sure.
It becomes really oppressive, and that's where the colonial period come out and empires and enslavement of peoples and stuff. That's all occurred when government become fused together with the corporate, the businesses.
And I think that's exactly what we have now at this point. There's not too much that we can do about that other than continuing to try to hold our politicians accountable and staying in tune with what they're doing. So I encourage you definitely to do that. You guys got to stay in tune with what's going on and hold your people accountable. I was looking at the voting results here for Genesee County, and 6,700 people basically made the vote there in total for the 49th district. Now, I would think there'd be a lot more people that live out there in the areas of Flushing and Fenton and basically the whole west side of the county. How many people are in Genesee County? I think that the voter turnout is definitely and this is an off vote, so you're not going to have as many people show up for sure. But that speaks volumes right there. Is that a lot of people just don't even care enough or believe enough to get out and vote. In fact, right here, voter turnout is 10.9%.
There ought to be a law against that. Australia, I guess you're compelled by law to vote.
And it's funny, of all the different things that we've compelled each other to do by law, the fact that we haven't made voting mandatory or some form of that is kind of interesting. But I think that's...
What's the excuse? You live outside the area. I've always lived in the city, so it's just a matter of going down to the polling place. It's always been down at Williams School for me, because I grew up in the same area. So everybody else around here is within maybe 3, 4 blocks, 5 blocks of their house. They had a school or some kind of municipal building or church they go to vote for. Mm-hmm. So why the hell is it so hard for them to show up at their polling place? I think they do a pretty decent job of placing them amongst the people.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. And we spend a lot of money to make these voting booths available and to conducting them and so forth. So you better believe you're paying for it. But yeah, what is the excuse of why you only have 10% or 11 basically show up to vote? Out of everybody that's registered. You had registered voters 331,984 here in the county. And the ballots cast were 36,000 people, so just over 10%.
That's insane. Then they're gonna see. I think voting can be a futile attempt at doing something on a national level. But on a local level, I certainly see the impact. The MSU thing was extended. The cooperative extension thing,
which is
awesome,
was
voted in, which is great. Also, the the proposal to help continue funding for Mott Community College, the bond proposal was allowed. So that was all behind those. But I'm all for local stuff. At the national level, there's no accountability on that. Once you let them people have control of it, you can't see what's going on. You never will. And that's why I say, vote on stuff locally at least,
I agree, John. I think that that's an important thing to do, especially on the local votes. I think that's where it really does have an impact. But again, when you have, less than half, that's an understatement. We had 10% of the people making the choices here in the county. That's pretty sad turnout. I don't know what we could do to increase voter turnout other than making it mandatory or maybe giving people time off or something like that. Or I think maybe one of the big things that should be allowed to do is let people vote online. I know that seems to be sort of a voodoo sort of subject and so forth, but I think with the modern technology nowadays, people would be a lot more apt to be able to voice their opinion. And if they could just simply use their cell phone or go to the internet and make a vote there. I know it's not available to everyone, but or maybe call in your vote. Obviously, we want to try to protect against fraud and so forth. But with this kind of turnout, I don't think there's a whole lot of fraud you have to worry about protecting. Nobody's showing up to vote anyways.
You do what you can until you have to take serious measures. Voting's just one of them. It might be an exercise of futility, but exercise it. It was took me 5-10 minutes to go down and vote. Wow. Oh my God, that was such a drain on me. I had to take and recoup my law, for 4 hours afterwards. Americans are just, their priorities. They'll play video games for 10 hours a day on their weekend.
Sure.
I mean,
But
they
yeah, we won't take
waddle their ass up to a
10,
voting
15
spot.
minutes to go down and vote.
Right. I mean,
know.
it's stupid to me.
It's sad. It is sad. And like one of the other things that's always bothered me is that we have usually pretty good coverage in the news of the election results, but we don't have very good coverage typically of leading up to the election. Talking about what the issues are, interviewing the candidates, getting their feel for things, and that's something else I'd like to see a lot more of. That way, people can, when they do go make a vote, it's much more of an educated vote. So that's one of the things we've always tried to do here at Flint Talk Radio and on the Genesee County Compassion Club show is get you guys educated so that you know what's going on, so that you can make an educated vote. Hopefully you guys will be able to do that. I definitely would encourage you to get on the phones, talk to your new state representative if you're over in the 49th District or your current one, and also your state senator, and let them know how you feel about these bills that we have. We have a number of different bills in the House. Besides Senate Bill 660, the pharmaceutical bill, there's also a bill in there to decriminalize marijuana, and there's another bill in there talking about local options for distribution centers. It's important that your voice gets heard, and it's not going to be unless you make the phone call. So I encourage you guys to get out there and try to do that if you can. Also encourage you to stop by the Genesee County Compassion Club if you'd like to. We're open Tuesday through Saturday. And we're having our theme night this Friday. I know it's going to be lots of fun. Step on out there if you can. And hopefully we'll have you guys doing some positive things here in the future. Stop by the club if you can. I'd love to see you. John, thanks for being with me in the studio today. I appreciate it. And you guys try to stay dry and safe out there in Flint. Appreciate it. Have a good week.